Grizzlies fans know it's the team that gives you the edge. Big River Steel does too. And much like the Grizzlies have recruited legendary talent, we want you to be part of our team. Are you ready to be part of something legendary? Then visit www.bigriversteel.com. That's www.bigriversteel.com.
Kroger shoppers and Grizz fans, want exclusive last-minute discounted ticket deals texted straight to you during the Grizzlies 2024-2025 season? Sign up with the new Kroger Buzzer Beater deal. Fans can sign up by texting Grizz to 636-479 or visit your local Kroger store in the Delta Division and scan the QR code. By signing up, you agree to receive recurring automated promotional and personalized marketing text messages from the Memphis Grizzlies. Consent is not a condition of any purchase. Message frequency varies. Message and data rates may apply.
Anticipate each challenge. Make a quick response. Capitalize on every opportunity. And win. Greatness won't wait. It's true in basketball. It's true in banking. Grizzlies Checking from Pinnacle. Play hard. Bank easy. Open a Grizzlies checking account with at least $100 and a recurring direct deposit by August 31st. And you could receive a $200 direct deposit bonus into your account. Details at grizzliesbanking.com. Member FDIC.
Thanks for showing up, Memphis. Nothing beats catching your Grizzlies IRL, and nobody knows that better than you. So next time you want to hit up a game, Ticketmaster's got your back with tickets to every upcoming matchup. Whether you're catching the Grizzlies at home or on the road, you'll find tickets at Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Memphis Grizzlies and the NBA. Keep putting that jersey collection to use and get Grizzlies tickets today. There's no better brag than saying you saw it live. See you courtside again soon, Memphis.
Live from the Built Ford Tough studio at FedEx Forum, it's the Gary Parrish Show, presented by Ortho South, on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app. Now, here's your host, Gary Parrish.
I'm here. My name is Gary Parrish. I'm speaking to you from Midtown Manhattan, New York City. Bennett Doyle back in Memphis, produces the program inside the Built Ford Tough studio. Glad he's with me. Glad you're with me. Hope you're getting through the day best you can. And I hope if you're a Memphian who doubles as a University of Memphis fan, or even a non-Memphian who enjoys watching the University of Memphis do good things, I guess I wonder how you're feeling on this Monday. On one hand, the Tigers just won the AAC Tournament, got a 5 seed in the NCAA Tournament. Awesome stuff. Congratulations. But on the other hand, Tyrese Hunter's in a boot, and you're an underdog in your first-round game, in part because you're playing a team that's on a 10-game winning streak and being led by a possible first-round pick in Nick Clifford. That's the bad. Interesting situation. We'll talk through it momentarily. First, though, quickly, let me set today's schedule for you. When we finish this open, we're going to take a break, come back, and do 5 more things you need to know, at which point we're going to discuss 5 previously undiscussed stories. Among them, Saturday night was a fun night inside FedEx Forum. Grizz beat the Heat, and then we got Tony Allen's number retirement. Zebo was there, Marc Gasol, Derrick Rose, Vince Carter, Lupe Fiasco, and I love the Quincy Pondexter stuff. Just a great scene. I'll get Bennett to give us a review from inside the arena. We're going to do that in about 20 minutes. We've reached the point where Mavericks players are arguing with Mavericks fans right in the middle of a game about the Luka Doncic trade. His stupid trade just gets worse and worse and worse. We'll discuss that in just a bit. A Michigan baseball player went viral this weekend for his celebration after sliding into third to complete a triple. In simple terms, he snorted the third baseline like it was cocaine. I don't know how none of my high school teammates thought of this in the 1990s. It seemed like the thing. I can't believe we didn't have this thing figured out by game 2. We'll show it to you. We'll show it to you a little later on in the show. The Bengals have signed both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Great stuff for Cincinnati. Very happy for the home of Pete Rose. But what does What does a NFL salary cap ever really prevent anybody from doing? I don't know. I'll ask Bennett if he knows. We'll do that in the second hour. And we have an update on the missing Pitt student who was last seen in the Dominican Republic back on March 6th. She still hasn't been found. We still don't have a body, but new surveillance video has surfaced. I'll get you updated on a future Dateline episode. We're going to do that during a segment we call 5 More Things You Need to Know. Then we'll eventually do GP's Carryout, and we'll call it a day. So that's the rundown. We got a lot to get to. But I did want to start with the 2025 NCAA Tournament. The selection show was Sunday. We now have a bracket. They put 68 teams in it per requirements, and Memphis, no surprise, is one of them. Would have been in even with an at-large, but they didn't need it because they got the auto bid by beating UAB for the 3rd time this season to win the AAC Tournament down in Texas yesterday. Memphis has been given a 5 seed in the West region, AAC regular season champs, AAC tournament champs, 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Like I told you earlier, that's the good. The bad is that Tyrese Hunter is in a boot, and you opened as an underdog to a Mountain West Conference team. Colorado State, 2.5-point favorite over Memphis on Friday. How you feeling, Big Ben Bennett? You celebrating your 5 seed or not feeling so great because a very important player seems unlikely to play?
I'm feeling really good. Good. I'm just glad that they're back. This whole weekend, it just kind of like it reinforces things. Like I felt like it was obviously it's been a great couple weeks for Penny Hardaway. But for I sit here and bag on the conference a lot. I can't really do that if they don't go out and win the conference tournament as well as the regular season. They did both, and I'm stoked that they were rewarded for not only the non-conference schedule, which is clearly what helped them get this 5 seed, but for dominating this conference. Like, I think the committee took that into account as well. Like, dude, this team dominated this conference. They're clearly a good basketball team, and I think that played a factor in it too, as well as the great non-conference schedule. So I'm feeling good all around. I was excited to see them hoist the trophy. I wanted that trophy. I know that like conference tournaments have kind of lost their luster a little bit, maybe as far as what it means for the NCAA tournament. But for me, that was a big deal yesterday, and I'm feeling really, really good about it. Bummed for Tyrese. I hope he's okay. We'll get a report, I'm sure, this week. But it was a really cool feeling yesterday for sure.
I like that they have the trophy, to put it in your terms. I like that Penny prioritized it, and not just privately, but publicly. People, particularly young people, will care about anything you tell them to care about. If you have influence over a young person, and a Division I men's basketball coach should, on some level, have influence over his players, you can get them to care about whatever you want them to care about. Emphasize what matters to you, and you can make it matter to other people. I think this is a real problem in the NBA. You're constantly hearing coaches and players and everybody involved de-emphasize the regular season, either with load management or telling you quite clearly they don't care about being the 2 seed or the 4 seed. They're just trying to make sure they're as fresh as they can be by the time we get done with the 82 regular season games. I don't think it's a stretch to connect dots that the coaches and players de-emphasizing the regular season in the NBA makes it feel less important to the fans. There is no other league that I follow where you can find on-the-record quotes from coaches and players where they say they're not even trying to win every game, or they're not even trying to win their conference. They're not even trying to finish with the best record they can finish with. Like in the NFL, you don't hear people really talk like that until late in the season. You might be resting people because you're already locked into a specific place. But in the NBA, like, these are conversations people have in week 2. It's just like, this is not that, it's not that important. So is it surprising that then the players take on when you hear it from management and you hear it from the coaches, it trickles into the players, then it trickles into the fans, and then that's how you have an NBA regular season problem, and by extension an all-star game problem. My point is this. Penny was asked about being down 2 point guards and playing in the AAC tournament title game and the risk involved. And does the cons outweigh the pros at this point when it comes to how you approach that final game in the AAC tournament against UAB, and he made it very clear. We want to win. I'm not worried about the NCAA tournament until we get to the NCAA tournament. We have a basketball game to play tomorrow. I want to win the game tomorrow. I love that. And if you don't think that changes the mindset of your basketball team, think about it. It's your head coach. You look at him every day. There's a big difference between him telling you, hey, guys, we're already in the NCAA tournament, and Tyrese is hurt, so let's just go out there and, be careful. Let's try to stay healthy. Most important thing today is just to get out of this with no more injuries. Well, that's one thing to put in your player's head. Another thing is we're out there. We're going to win a trophy.
Yeah.
I don't want UAB getting in the NCAA tournament because they beat us. The only path they have is beating us, and I don't want them ever bragging about they beat us to get in the NCAA tournament. No way. Pierre Niles didn't slap a UAB fan for us to go lose to them in the 2025 championship game of the NCAA tournament. Let's go win the game. I liked that Penny did that. He emphasized this is important. We're playing for something that matters. And then they went out and they played like it mattered. So I love that they get that done. I do believe that they were rewarded for their non-league schedule and the aggression with which it was put together. And it seems pretty clear, at least in this specific conversation about predictive metrics and results-based metrics, at least when it came to seeding, they seemed to really lean on the results-based stuff more than the predictive metric stuff, because it was just last week on Inside College Basketball one night, I actually interviewed the committee chair, North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham, and also Dan Gavitt from the NCAA. And we were talking about predictive metrics and results-based metrics because these numbers sometimes get conflated by fans. They just get sort of put under the umbrella of computers. And you say, well, yeah, this computer's got us 17. And then over here, this computer's got us 48, whatever. And the reason those computers have you viewed very different ways is because they're doing very different things. One is designed to just sort of recognize what it is you've accomplished, and another is designed to look at your efficiency numbers and emphasize that. So we were talking last week, I believe this conversation was with Dan Gavitt, and the conversation turned specifically to Gonzaga. What do you do with them? The results-based stuff has them in that 8-9 range, but the predictive metrics, KenPom, the net, has them literally in the top 10. If you seed them based on their resume, they might be in that 8-9 game. But if you seed them based on their resume and put them in that 8-9 game, are you doing a disservice to the 1 seed in that region if you're asking a 1 seed in the round of 32 to play a Gonzaga team that is ranked in the top 10 at KenPom, the net, and most predictive metrics? Like that this is a real conversation that happens, at least among people like me. And so I was curious if it happened inside the selection committee room, and Dan told me, yes, it does. And these are all things that will be discussed. Well, if you look at Gonzaga's seed, Memphis' seed, it's pretty obvious where they landed on this conversation. We're going to reward the results and not the predictives. That's how Memphis ends up with a 5 seed. Memphis ends up with a 5 seed on the strength of its quad 1 record, on the strength of beating Michigan State and Clemson and Missouri and UConn and Ole Miss. And Gonzaga got seeded 8th, not because of its predictive metrics, because the predictive metrics suggest a 3 seed was probably more accurate. But they don't have much of a resume. They didn't beat very many good people. And you could look at Gonzaga and Memphis and reasonably conclude that when it came to seeding, the committee cared more about the results-based metrics than the predictive metrics. Now, they might have used the predictive metrics in other places, but when it came to seeding Memphis and Gonzaga, it was clear the results won out. So Memphis gets a 5 seed. Bennett, we talked about it last week, and I think I said if they lose in the AAC tournament anywhere, because anywhere you lose in that tournament, it's going to be considered a bad loss. If you lose in that tournament and the committee actually moves you because of the result of the game. And there's some confusion about whether they actually do that on Sunday afternoon or not. But if we're giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying that they will move you based on the result of any game in your conference tournament, I thought they were at risk of falling into that 7-8 range with a loss, so getting in that 8-9 game with a loss. But if they won the AAC tournament, I think we could pull the tape on this. I said in that 5-6 range, perhaps as high as a 5. If I'm being completely honest, an hour before the selection show yesterday, when it was clear Memphis was going to win the AAC tournament, if you just said predict it, I would have predicted a 6 seed. But if you looked at the top 25 and 1 yesterday morning, or again this morning, I did have Memphis 20th in the top 25 and 1, and that equates to a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. So they are about where I thought they should be, a little higher than I thought the committee would put them. But again, the committee respected the strength of their wins over an outright Big Ten champ, wins over multiple other NCAA tournament teams, and gave them a 5 seed and put them in that forever interesting 5-12 matchup. Obviously, there's been a lot of 12-5 upsets over the years, and I promise you, you will see people on TV between now and the time that game's tipped off talking about, I think Colorado State as a 12 seed is going to upset Memphis. The truth is, based on the betting markets, it wouldn't be an upset at all. Based on the seeds, it would be a 12 over a 5. On the betting markets, it wouldn't be at all, because Colorado State actually opened as a 2.5-point favorite over Memphis. Some of this is tied to the predictive metrics. Right now, on the strength of a 10-game winning streak, Colorado State is 42nd at KenPom. Memphis is 51st. So again, in seeding, they clearly did not emphasize the predictive metrics. If they did, Colorado State would be higher than a 12, and Memphis would be lower than a 5. Colorado State is actually higher at KenPom than Memphis by 9 spots. But you get Colorado State as a 12 seed, Memphis as a 5 seed. But the betting markets don't care about the seeding. They're just looking at predictive metrics. And at KenPom, it's got Colorado State projected as a winner, 74-73 over Memphis. Factor in the Tyrese Hunter news, the unlikelihood that he will be available. It certainly seems to be accepted as the truth at this point, and that's how you get Colorado State minus 2.5. So honestly, Bennett, I didn't think we would be here, but here we are. This is, I guess, the way life works. If you'd have told me on any day of this season, Memphis is going to be a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, I'd have said, man, that sounds like the best news ever. And yet, right now, in this moment, it doesn't feel like the best news ever, because you're an underdog and one of your, let's just say, 3 most important players is unlikely to play in the NCAA tournament, unlikely to play again this season. That's I just can understand how Memphis fans might have mixed emotions this morning. What should be a day of celebration feels like it's not as great as it could have been, because, again, you're an underdog in your first-round game, in part because one of your best players is in a walking boot.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. That does take a little bit of air out of it. The good thing is we just watched them win the conference championship yesterday without him. So, that's a good sign. And I think there's some other things to like with that. You've seen a lot of that Colorado State team this year, I'm sure. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on them, because I've only seen them play once or twice. But they clearly don't have the size advantage inside like the Tigers do. So that's a good thing. Like, Dane Danger's been playing amazing. He had an awesome AAC tournament. Musa had a really good game yesterday. So, like, there's some things that I could – and plus you mentioned, like, they have an amazing guard that's going to be an NBA player. The Tigers have another amazing guard that's, one of the best in the country. So I like that matchup as well. Like, that'll be fun to see. So, yeah, I agree. Like, it's weird because you get the 5 and you're so stoked to get the 5, and then you're immediately an underdog and you're playing in Seattle, and it's kind of like, oh, God, man. I thought it would feel like it was going to be way easier than this being a 5 seed.
Well, by definition, if you're a 5 seed, you should be favored in your first-round game.
Yeah, for sure.
But Memphis isn't. And you can cut that a variety of ways. The truth is, the betting markets have nothing to do with the selection process. And so the betting markets are going to be tied to the predictive metrics, and Memphis has been way behind in the predictive metrics all season long. Why? We've talked about this. Because they beat a bunch of bad teams in closer than they should have been games. Memphis needed to beat it's awesome that Memphis had the record in the AAC that it had, but if you wanted to have strong predictive metrics, you needed to, instead of beating all those teams by 7, you needed to beat them by 17, sometimes 27. Memphis didn't do that. You can build strong predictive metric numbers in a league like the AAC. Gonzaga did it in the WCC. Again, Gonzaga's top 10 at KenPom, top 10 in the net. It's possible to build a strong KenPom ranking in a bad league, but you have to beat the bad teams badly, and Memphis did not do enough of that. So it just is what it is. The selection committee looked at Memphis and focused on what the team had actually done. 5 seed. The betting markets just look at the predictive metrics, and that suggests Colorado State should be favored over Memphis. At KenPom by just a point, factor in Tyrese Hunter's situation, it goes to 2.5. It might grow by the time we get to tip-off. So, yeah, like I'm not ready to do an obituary on the season, but you would think that being a 5 seed, you'd be thinking more about, okay, and then in the second round, what are we going to do? And if you're looking past Colorado State as a Memphis fan or a Memphis player or a Memphis coach, you're probably looking too far right now because, again, according to the betting markets, this team is good enough to beat you. In fact, is favored to beat you. Nick Clifford is the name you need to know. Really good college basketball player who's going to be the type of guy who's not a household name because he played the Mountain West Conference, but you'll look up and he'll just be on an NBA roster in 3 years, getting buckets for somebody. The coach, Niko Medved, we've actually had him on the show before because in college, he was David Roddy's coach. David Roddy, drafted by the Grizzlies, played at Colorado State, played for Niko Medved. I've known Niko for a long time. He's from Minneapolis. Barring a surprise, you might have heard late last week, Minnesota fired its coach, Ben Johnson. Barring a surprise, Niko, whenever Colorado State's season is over, is going to be the next head coach at Minnesota.
I like that for us. I kind of like that.
Well, it could
thinking about other things, GP. Thinking about other things.
Could be thinking about other things, or once upon a time, Shaheen Holloway around this time of the calendar was going to be the next head coach at Seton Hall just as soon as St. Peter's season was over, and then St. Peter's looked up and was in the Elite Eight, so it didn't seem to distract them too much. Whatever point you're trying to make as it pertains to that, I think you can find evidence to support it. But yeah, you have to think on some level. Niko is thinking about things other than Colorado State, even if it's just like, when he's laying in bed at night. And on some level, those players know, some of them at least, that they are probably about to lose their coach. I think that's, as I'm just sort of thinking through it now, probably less of a big deal than it once was because the transfer portal exists, transfer waivers exist.
Every team's different every year, right?
Yeah, you can just be like, all right, coach, peace out. Or like if you love him so much and he loves you, you can just go with him. I mean, at Drake right now, like Ben McCollum got this amazing story. They won 30 games, won their league. He's won 12 straight conference championships. Some of that team at Drake is quite literally players that he won with last season at the Division II level. He gets the Drake job, and he's like, all right, you just come with me. Let's go try to win at this level. We did it at this level, and he was remarkable. So that's less of a big deal. Like there's probably some Colorado State players in a different time. Colorado State players would be looking at their coach like, man, I hope coach doesn't leave us. And now they probably look at their exact same guy and be like, I hope he takes me with him. And gives me $400,000 of that Big Ten money.
That's a good point.
So I think it's probably less of a nerve wracker than it used to be, but it's still something. It's still something. And if you're a Memphis fan wanting to, point to that as a positive in the Tigers' favor, I'll co-sign it if you want me to. Either way, don't take this for granted. I said this before. When John Calipari was going nonstop to NCAA tournaments and getting great seeds at the end of his reign. The early part wasn't so great, but the end was obviously incredible. And then Josh Pastner consistently, for a minute, went to NCAA tournaments. And when you get there more often than not, you start to think that, well, this is just the way it's always going to be. Like when John Calipari's marching you into the NCAA tournament and getting you a 1 seed, a 2 seed every year, you can't really even imagine ever missing it again. But I don't have to remind you guys, like this is not guaranteed. Like,
Yep.
Just because you're Memphis basketball doesn't mean you will always be in the NCAA tournament. Josh Pastner started missing some. Tubby Smith missed it every time. Penny has missed it more often than any of us would have liked. Indiana basketball is not in the NCAA tournament right now. Think about that. Indiana basketball couldn't make the NCAA tournament. And they are set up to flourish at that place. All the NIL money, all the tradition, everything you need. Indiana basketball is not in this NCAA tournament. North Carolina basketball is, but just barely, and probably shouldn't be. So don't take this for granted. It's an awesome job by Penny and his staff. We've talked through it a million times, but to have staff changes so close to the start of the season, to bring back only one scholarship player, and then to be sitting here the day after Selection Sunday with big wins. A win over a Naismith Memorial Hall of Famer in Tom Izzo, who went on to be the outright Big Ten champion. You beat them this season. A win over the back-to-back champs and future Naismith Memorial Hall of Famer, UConn and Dan Hurley. You beat them this season. A Clemson team that spent time in the top 10. You beat them this season. Ole Miss, Missouri. Very good SEC teams that got in the NCAA tournament with no issues whatsoever. You beat them this season. Like, that's all good stuff. And for Penny to be able to do it under these circumstances is why he is a worthy inclusion on any National Coach of the Year list. He is the AAC Coach of the Year. It would have been nonsensical to give that to anybody else. I don't think he'll win National Coach of the Year because there's frankly just candidates who did a little bit more and are going to get more attention than the coach of the AAC champions. But in year 7 as a Division I men's college basketball coach, he was awesome. His staff was awesome. Those players responded, and I'm happy they were rewarded by the selection committee for everything they were able to accomplish. I wish they were entering this NCAA tournament healthier than they're going to be, and in a better spot to actually advance, because even if you do get past that round of 64 game, you're running into probably another team that clearly is going to be favored over you pretty significantly in the round of 32, as long as the bracket plays to seed. So I wish we were just celebrating in an 8-point favorite going into the round of 64 as opposed to a 2.5-point underdog, but it is what it is. They'll throw the ball up on Friday. We'll see how it goes. Just a couple of more thoughts on the bracket, then we'll move on. The number 1 seeds were exactly what they should have been, exactly what I had predicted in the top 25 and won, and also they were a reminder that you as a fan, or even you as an analyst, can be bothered by Auburn losing 3 of its final 4 games before the start of the NCAA tournament, but it was never going to cost them the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. And I've been saying that, I feel like, quite literally every day for 2 weeks now. I kept Auburn number 1 in the top 25 and 1 after it lost to Texas A&M, after it lost to Alabama, and then after it lost to Florida in the SEC tournament. I just, boom, they're still number 1. Boom, they're still number 1. And I don't know if you know what it's like to rank basketball teams every morning and just defy tradition, defy what AP voters I knew were going to do and actually did. But it just leads to you getting called an idiot every single day. You idiot, do you not realize Auburn just lost? You idiot, do you not realize Auburn just lost 2 in a row? You idiot, do you not realize Auburn's lost 3 of 4? But as I explained over and over again, I am not getting too caught up in the day-to-day, even though these are daily rankings. I am trying to the best of my ability, for the most part, provide you with a daily snapshot of, if the NCAA tournament started today, this is more or less how the top 26 teams in the bracket would be seeded. And I'm doing that every day from the first day of the season until the Monday after Selection Sunday. The bracketologists are not updating brackets every single day, certainly not in November, December, January, or February, and really not even until around last week in the month of March. But that's what I'm trying to do with the top 25 and 1 every day. And so it just never made sense to me to take Auburn away from that number 1 spot. Because even after the loss to Texas A&M, Auburn still had the best resume in the sport. Even after the loss to Alabama, Auburn still had the best resume in the sport. Even after the loss to Florida, Auburn still had the best resume in the sport. Yesterday afternoon, when that selection show started, it was clear in my mind that Auburn still had the best resume in the sport. 2 more Quadrant 1 wins than anybody else in the country, and was quite literally the only team in the country that never lost a game to a team ranked outside of the top 20 of the net. Yeah, they ended up with 5 losses, and that's more than I thought they were going to have, say, a month ago. But they still never lost a game to anybody outside of the top 20 of the net. Nobody else can say that about themselves this season. So it was nice to see the committee reward what it is they're supposed to reward. They're not supposed to, when it comes to giving out the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, focus on who's playing the best right now, or who's number 1 in the predictive metrics, or who's looked great in their past 4 games, or who just won a conference tournament and cut nets. It is supposed to be, from the day we started this thing until right now, who has done the most, who has accomplished the most, and that was Auburn. Auburn had more Quadrant 1 victories than anybody else. Fewer losses outside of the top 20 of the net than anybody else. Number 1 in strength of record, number 1 in wins above bubble. In all the ways that you should care about this stuff, Auburn should have been the number 1 overall seed, even with its 3 of 4 losses to enter the NCAA tournament. If you want to point to that and tell me those 3 losses in 4 games are why you don't think Auburn's going to win a national championship, totally sensible. They have not been playing their best basketball. They will need to flip a switch. But that should have nothing to do with the resume conversation, about a conversation who should be number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. It's been clear for a while now, probably a month or so, that barring something crazy, it was going to be Auburn. And then something kind of crazy did happen. They lost 3 of 4 games to Inter-Selection Sunday, and yet it was still Auburn as the number 1 overall seed, followed by Duke, Houston, and Florida. The 2 seeds are also the teams that I had 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the top 25 and 1. The seeding process unfolded pretty similarly to the way I thought it would. Outside of maybe Michigan, I would have had Michigan as a 3 seed after winning the Big Ten tournament. The committee gave them a 5 seed. It just sort of reinforces the narrative that those late Sunday afternoon games don't matter much, if at all, to the bracket. The committee will never acknowledge this. You can ask them every year, and every year they'll say every game matters, including the AAC Tournament title game, the Big Ten Tournament title game. But I don't buy that, because if you take into account Michigan added a Quadrant 1 victory over Wisconsin yesterday, that would have had them closer to a 3 seed than a 5, at worst a 4. There's no way to actually think there's 16 teams that should have been seeded higher than Michigan after Michigan did what it did in the Big Ten tournament. So I don't believe that result impacted the bracket. I just don't. They can tell me I'm wrong, and I'll just tell them I don't believe them. And we could just keep going back and forth. And this isn't even a criticism, other than I just wish they would be more transparent about it. Like, I think everybody could understand if you just sort of said, we'd love to, but it's very difficult to be adjusting things that late in the day. And so the Big Ten tournament title game, it's probably not going to have as much impact as a game that was played a week earlier might have on what it is we're doing. And then just to explain why. It's not hard to explain why. For television purposes, keep in mind all of this is built around a television show. If they just wanted to have a bracket, you could just email that. It's a television show. You ready? It's a television show worth millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Well, to put on a television show, a lot goes into that. They can't get you that bracket at 5 o'clock Central and just start the television show, and you're just sort of on the fly. Graphics have to be built. It's a big process. So in the spirit of transparency, I'm not telling any secrets here. That bracket is in the CBS Broadcast Center, a little bit before that television show actually starts. And again, I understand they have contingency brackets and whatever, but one of the first things I noticed is that the Big Ten tournament champ seems wildly underseeded. That suggests to me that Big Ten tournament title game didn't mean as much as it should have if you were doing it the way you purport to do it. Whatever. The bubble stuff was actually probably the biggest immediate headline from the selection show, because North Carolina got in when nobody thought they were getting in, and West Virginia got left out when nobody thought they were getting left out. And late last night, I was on the Eye on College Basketball podcast with Matt Norlander, and he made the point that he doesn't even mind. Like, I want to be clear, I don't want to misquote him. He thinks West Virginia should be in and North Carolina should be out, like the rest of the world, other than the selection committee. But he was like, I don't mind that the committee's not beholden to bracketmatrix.com, which is a website where they take like more than 100 brackets and they document them, and you can sort of see, like if you're a Memphis fan and you want to see what not just Jerry Palm and Joe Lunardi think about you, but every television bracketologist, plus just people who do it on the side as a hobby. Like if you want to see what the world thinks about you from a bracketing perspective, you go to bracketmatrix.com and you can see more than 100 different seeds attached to your name. And Norlander's point was, I'm sort of glad that the committee doesn't just look at that and say, well, if Bracket Matrix, every one of these brackets says West Virginia's got to be in, I guess we got to put them in. And I understood the point he was making, but I actually think that's crazy. I think if you look at something and there's 100 people saying they disagree with you, like everybody is saying they disagree with you, that should make you reconsider your position. Am I wrong about that? Like, no. I think there are certain people I respect in the opinion-giving business, and at the very least, if I come to a realization that my opinion that I formed on my own runs completely counter to theirs on whatever topic, I at least go back and think about it some more. Because I'm like, I usually agree with this person, and I don't agree with them on this. So is that a them problem or a me problem? Let me look at it again. I do that all the time. If there's 50 people out there that I don't respect, that I don't, then I won't even blink. That doesn't matter to me. But if there's somebody out there who I respect and that I usually agree with, and suddenly I find myself disagreeing with them, I look at myself before I look at them, because I want to see if maybe there's something I'm missing. And I think the committee should do that. You can reach independently the conclusion that West Virginia doesn't belong in this tournament. But if everybody who is doing a bracket out there in the world thinks that they should be in, I think you got to go back and look at that and wonder, are we missing something here? Because I think they missed something here. You can justify putting North Carolina in based on the way that they did it. And I made this point last night on television. There's so much data points available to the committee now, results-based metrics, predictive metrics, quad 1 stuff, quad 2 stuff, strength of schedule, non-league strength of schedule. You can sort of emphasize whatever you want to emphasize to support whatever case you want to make. Like if I wanted to make Gonzaga a 3 seed, I could just point to the predictive metrics and say, look at their net, look at their KenPom. You got to respect what it is these predictive metrics say they are. And if I wanted to make Gonzaga 8 seed, I would just look at the results-based stuff and say, look at their quadrant 1, quadrant 2. They don't have big signature wins. Hey, it's not my fault, but you got to win some big games to get seeded, as the top 3. I could take from the sheets, the team sheets, as they say, emphasize whatever I want to emphasize and make it sound smart. And that's what they did with North Carolina. They de-emphasized the 1-12 record in quadrant 1, which in my mind is the most important thing. What is the NCAA tournament? It is a tournament designed to crown a champion. How do you get to be the champion? At some point, you got to start beating good teams. To me, that is question number 1 about whether you belong in the NCAA tournament. Did you show the ability to beat good teams? That's what you're asked to do once you get in this bracket, for the most part. Yeah. You're going to need to beat good teams. Have you shown – we've been playing for more than 4 months. Have you shown the ability to beat good teams? North Carolina hadn't. They're 1-12 in quadrant 1, and the one win was a victory over UCLA here in New York. I was there at the Garden, and they stole that game. Like they were behind the whole game. It was a weird victory. They played 13 quadrant 1 games and they lost 12 of them. That's all I need to know. Like once I can cite that as a fact, I don't need you in this tournament. But the committee looked at North Carolina and they said, yeah, but, no losses outside of Quadrant 1. So, yeah, they lost to a lot of good teams, great teams, but they didn't lose to any bad teams. Well, congratulations on your losses. You're bragging about your losses. You're North Carolina basketball bragging about your losses. That seems weird to me. Michael Jordan wore your uniform, and you're bragging about the quality of your losses. I liked it better when you guys bragged about wins. And then they emphasized Quadrant 2. They're 8-0 in Quadrant 2. I never heard anybody. We do the Eye on College Basketball podcast 3 times a week all season. We never emphasize Quadrant 2. Suddenly there's the committee co-chair, vice chair, emphasizing North Carolina's Quadrant 2 record. Well, they're 8-0 in Quadrant 2. Okay, but why is that more relevant than their 1-12 in Quadrant 1? That 8-0 in Quadrant 2, okay. But when they played the best teams in the country, they lost almost without exception. That should be more important than when they played mediocre teams, they beat them every time. They emphasized what they wanted to emphasize. That's how you get North Carolina in. With West Virginia, they just stepped on it. They just messed this up. I don't know if you heard the explanation, but among the reasons they explained that they kept West Virginia out of the bracket is because of an injury to Tucker DeVries.
Oh, that's such BS. I saw that.
He's been hurt since December 6th. Some of their good wins came with him in the lineup, but most of their good wins came without him. It's one thing when you get hurt this weekend, although maybe it's not, because I'll hammer this point home in a second. And they can wonder, well, we don't know what this team is going to look like without this injured star player. The most famous examples, Cincinnati in 2000, Kenyon Martin breaks his leg in the pyramid during that conference tournament. And the committee made Cincinnati a 2 seed, even though clearly it had the resume of a 1 seed. And their explanation was, well, we now know Kenyon Martin isn't going to be available, and we just don't think they're the same team without Kenyon Martin. And nobody really argued because it made sense that they wouldn't be the same team without Kenyon Martin. And there was nothing to support a counter argument. We had not seen them be great without Kenyon Martin. West Virginia's been playing without this dude, who isn't even their best player, by the way. They've been playing without this dude since December 6th. They've won Quadrant 1 games. They've won more Quadrant 1 games without Tucker DeVries than North Carolina won with its entire roster. All right? The roster of North Carolina's taken into the NCAA Tournament didn't win as many Quadrant 1 games as West Virginia won without Tucker DeVries. So why are you punishing West Virginia for a player who's been out for more than 3 months? It makes no sense. They showed you what they are without him, and what they are without him is a team that's good enough to be in the NCAA Tournament. But you know what? They said he's important to them back in November, so we think that should be considered in the selection process. All right, fine. But then tell me how Memphis got a 5 seed when one of its best players is in a boot, and we really don't have a good idea of what they're going to be without him. It was common knowledge yesterday that Tyrese Hunter is in a boot, on crutches, and unlikely to play in this NCAA tournament. I'm not arguing that Memphis shouldn't have been given a 5. I'm glad that Memphis was. I want good things for Memphis. But how can you keep West Virginia out of the bracket because of a player who may or may not even be as important to West Virginia as Tyrese Hunter is to Memphis? How can you keep West Virginia out of a bracket, point to a player who hasn't played since December 6th, but then, in some people's mind, overseed Memphis, even though Memphis is one of its best players is probably not going to be able to play basketball anytime soon? How do you? There is no way you could answer that question if you were on that committee sensibly. Oh, and by the way, Duke's best player also has missed the past 2 games. Duke's best player, they say they would like for him to play on Friday, but you don't know if he can. That didn't hurt Duke at all when it came to the seeding process. Duke losing perhaps the best player in the country didn't hurt Duke at all. But West Virginia losing a top 3 player on its team more than 3 months ago cost West Virginia? What?
It doesn't make sense. And then, dude, you look at because I saw your old friend Ren Baker, he's the AD there, right? At West Virginia. Dude, he put out he was putting out some numbers because obviously, they're obviously mad. But there's 6 quad 1 wins. 5 of them are on the road. They got a good resume. They have 6 times as many quadrant 1 wins as North Carolina, and some of those came
without Tucker DeVries. You could have just pointed to West Virginia's wins above bubble, strength of record. There were things to point to where you could reasonably make a case against West Virginia if you were just committed to making that case. I would have still disagreed with you and said I think they should have been, especially over North Carolina. To me, that's where the conversation stops and starts. It's about North Carolina, West Virginia. If you're picking between those two teams, it should not. One team accomplished some stuff this season, and another team never did. To me, it's easy between them. But if you wanted to make a case against West Virginia, there are numbers to point to. But pointing to Tucker DeVries is just nonsensical. That made no sense. That's where if your goal as a committee chair or committee vice chair was to come out of your interviews on Sunday without looking stupid, you blew it when you started talking about West Virginia, because your explanation makes no sense whatsoever to people who have followed the sport even a little bit. But enough about that.
Yep.
Let's get to the Grizzlies. Fun night inside FedEx Forum on Saturday night. That number 9 was retired. I got to enjoy it from a hotel room, so I didn't get to experience the night the same way you did. But I will tell you, I enjoyed it thoroughly from this hotel room. The whole thing seemed really sweet and perfect and just excellent. Well done by everybody. I love that so many familiar faces showed up. We'll dive into the Grizz. We'll do that next. The Gary Parrish Show. We're presented by Ortho South.
We will get into all things Grizzlies, but first and foremost, a big congratulations to the Memphis Tigers for locking up at least a share of the AAC title. First time since joining the American Athletic Conference that they are regular season conference champs.
Tune in to the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt live every weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Our fans have a huge impact on our ability to play to the level that we're striving for.
Drop off, Morant. Oh! Well, you wanted home crowd involvement.
I love those moments where you see our guys engaging in the fans, and the fans just get pumped up.
They are standing at FedEx Forum.
I would hate to be on the other side with the opposition when FedEx Forum's rolling. That's such an unbelievable relationship that our group has with our fans.
Grammy, Academy, and Golden Globe award-winning superstar Mary J. Blige, live in Memphis. The For My Fans Tour, live at FedEx Forum Saturday, April 19th, with special guests Neo and Mario. Get tickets now at livenation.com. The iconic Mary J. Blige for one night only.
Sonic Radio. Welcome back to Sonic RNDIO. That spells radio with me, the CIO. This just in, the new Sonic $1.99 menu lets you build a crave-worthy meal for just $1.99 an item, whether that's a creamy shake, crispy tots, or a quarter-pound double cheeseburger. This just out. Ostriches. They're mean, not very cute, and in my opinion, way too big for a bird. Don't miss the Sonic Fun 99 menu. 5 items, always $1.99. Live free, eat Sonic.
Tax not included. See menu for details.
Grizzlies fans, dunks, dimes, and no looks are great on TV, but nothing compares to catching them IRL. And that starts with buying tickets at Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Memphis Grizzlies and the NBA. Ticketmaster gets you to the game so you can catch every highlight in person. From seeing your favorite Grizzly stars up close to hearing the squeak of the sneakers on the hardwood. Put that jersey collection to use and get tickets at Ticketmaster. There's no better brag than saying you saw it live. See you courtside, Memphis.
Can be unforeseen and unscheduled, and Ortho South understands this better than anyone. Since your injuries don't make appointments, you don't need to either. That's because Ortho South welcomes walk-ins during the weekdays, in the evenings, and even on Saturdays. So next time an unforeseen injury makes an unscheduled appearance in your life, visit orthosouth.org to find your nearest urgent care location. Just walk in, and Ortho South will take care of everything, especially you. Learn more at orthosouth.org. That's Ortho South at orthosouth.org. Now, I got 5 more things you need to know.
Number 1.
Final score on Saturday night inside FedEx Forum, Grizzlies 125, Miami Heat 91. It was a blowout against a team that used to employ Jimmy Butler, but not no more. And then, of course, we got to the good stuff. Tony Allen's number 9, the jersey retirement, the number retirement. Bennett, I got to consume it from here in a hotel room, so that's not as good as being inside FedEx Forum. But I will tell you, from here in a hotel room in New York City, it felt awesome. It felt special. It seemed sweet. I loved everything about it. What was it like to be there?
Dude, it was so good. It was so good. Like, just obviously just all the memories coming back of that time. And like, first off, Tony was so awesome. Like, when they gave him the mic and let him just go and do his speech and do his thank yous, it was the best. It was like unfiltered Tony Allen, and it was really good. Like, he could be a stand-up comedian if he wanted to. He was great. But then you see the picture, just the emotions of it all. Like, it was so good to just relive all those memories. And I thought there was a couple things that like really stood out from me that I want to tell you about. But like, just overall, it was so awesome, man. Like, those first 2 were great with Zebo and Mark. I thought this one was really cool. You know, I saw what you posted about how every coach in America should be sending this to their players, about how a guy that's, you know, I hate to call him a role player because of how much he meant to those teams, but in essence, a role player can get his jersey retired and honored like that and give so much love from a city because of just what he brought to the table, man. It was really cool. It was a great night.
I mean that. I mean, like, we all have gotten to be around Tony for years now. He's in the building every Tuesday.
Yeah.
We all like him and enjoy him on a personal level. And so we can appreciate everything about Saturday night and everything he meant to that franchise and to the city in a variety of ways. But the basketball stuff, I do think there's an important message there. And that is why I tweeted what I tweeted the other night. You know, so often these days, young players are just consumed with points per game and shots, and that's the way you prove you're a good basketball player. What do you average? And like, you know, I'm guilty of this as well. Every morning I have to rank 26 basketball teams, and I have to have little throwaway comments just to fill out the tool for the website. Somebody has asked me one time, why don't you ever get creative with those, or what? It's because I don't have time. All right, I just need something to fill that space. I'm not trying to come up with 26 awesome nuggets every single morning. I would die. I feel like I'm going to die anyway. But so what do? It is usually going to be the player who scored the most points in the game. P.J. Haggerty scored 32 points to lead Memphis past whatever. The Tigers' next game is Saturday against, East Carolina. I emphasize the name I grab is typically going to be the leading scorer in the game. So perhaps I'm part of the problem. But so often young players, it's all about scoring. I even watch this. My little guys are playing basketball now. And if you go to a basketball game and they play, and then you go to brunch or lunch or whatever, and somebody notices you're in a basketball uniform, you know what people ask? Did you win? How'd you do? Did you win? How many points you score? They always want to know how many points you scored, right? People get consumed with scoring. That is not what always matters most, and it's definitely not always matters most to NBA front offices. Tony is an incredible example of somebody who made a difference with a franchise and a difference in a city by not being a scorer. He impacted winning, impacted a culture. I tweet that video the other night and make that point. Every coach should show their players this. It's to emphasize that exactly. This guy didn't score 20 points a game, didn't score 15. He wasn't even thought of as a scorer, not in the NBA. There's another lesson in there, too. He's a Big 12 Player of the Year. This guy was a Power Conference Player of the Year and a role player his entire career in the NBA. That's how hard that is. But he was an impactful role player whose number will be hanging in a building forever because of the way he impacted things that are important. One night I was in Richmond, Virginia, I guess, and talking to Shaka Smart when he was still the coach at VCU. And we were just sort of talking basketball. And somehow Tony Allen came up. And I'm sort of saying a lot of the same stuff I've been saying. Even not the most skilled guy. He's not going to bury you from the three-point line too often. But every possession matters. He's going to take on your toughest assignment. He takes pride in it. He cares about that. While every other player, I seen Tony do this when I would sit courtside at Grizzlies games. TA would come over to courtside, the scores table. And whereas if you ever hear players like asking for information, it might be, what am I from three right now? Or Tony would ask, I saw this multiple times, whoever he was guarding, what are they? What's so-and-so from the field right now? Like he would ask questions like that, just randomly be curious. I never heard him ask, what am I from the field right now? The guy I'm guarding, what's he from the field right now? That's how he kept score. Not by scoring, but keeping you from scoring, by making life hard for you and by extension your team. So I'm talking to Shaka about this, and he asked me the next day at practice to talk to his team about this. He said, will you talk about Tony Allen to my basketball team tomorrow? Yeah. He wanted that message delivered because every college coach is out there fighting these same types of fights. You don't have to score 17 points a game to get on NBA radars. You have to do this, and this. Be a good teammate. Show you can play both sides of the ball. Be great at one thing. And the truth is, it's probably not going to be a scorer, but it doesn't have to be. Well, it's easier when you have examples to point to. And Tony Allen's a great example of that. Yeah. How many non-scoring role players could mean as much to a franchise and a city to get their number honored in that way? The list is small, but he did that. And there's a lesson in there for all young basketball players. Another favorite one I point to all the time, and this is a really good one. 2012 NBA draft. The first two picks were Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. They won a national championship at Kentucky. Then they went first and second in the NBA draft. Do you know on that Kentucky team? This is a good trivia time question. They were 4th and 5th on the team in shots per game. The number 1 pick and the number 2 pick in the NBA draft were 4th and 5th in shots per game at Kentucky. Nobody in the NBA cared. That is not. Ask anybody who works in the front office for the Grizzlies. Ask them how much they care about how many points per game Jalen Wells scored at Washington State last season. That is not what they were looking for. It doesn't matter as much as you sometimes think. And I think TA is a wonderful example. If I were a basketball coach, I would hold that up. I love seeing everybody come back.
Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I got a little video of him. If you want to just throw that up real quick, Kyra. I thought two moments that really stood out to me when he was thanking the guy, and you can see him there in the suite with Rudy Gay, Marc Gasol, and Vince Carter. I didn't realize how close him and Vince were. I know they were teammates. That was really cool, Vince Carter being there for him. The Paul Pierce thing was awesome as well. But two things that really stood out to me. One, I loved him giving Rudy his flowers, and I loved that Rudy got a big standing ovation from the crowd because Rudy, it was always this team had to move Rudy to take that next step. And And Rudy was an important part of this franchise for a long time. Like, I don't think you could tell the Memphis Grizzlies story without the name Rudy Gay. And so I'm really glad he got a little bit of love, and I'm glad Tony did that for him. The other one, too, was Ed Davis. Like, Ed Davis was there with him. And Ed Davis was a solid role player for a good Grizzlies team. And I thought it was really cool that he gave him some love because, like, I'll be honest, I hadn't thought about Ed Davis in a long time. It just seeing that, I was like, man, yeah, Ed was good for us. Like, that was cool for him to get some love from Tony as well. I was really enjoyed both those. Quincy Pondexter too. Like, that was really cool.
No, all of it. Just seeing those familiar faces. No, like, it means something when you look up and people are there for you, right?
Yeah.
That matters to TA. And all these people are busy, and, you know, to take a flight to come to Memphis just to support a former teammate / friend, I thought that was awesome. I know I assume it meant the world to Tony. Yeah, like, from Vince Carter to and Tony's like took a moment to try to make them feel important too.
Yeah.
Like, I saw one clip where he spent multiple minutes talking about Quincy Pondexter.
Yep.
I bet you don't expect to talk about Quincy. I bet you didn't think you were going to hear Tony Allen talk about Quincy Pondexter. No. At that ceremony, and yet that's a moment it happened. So it was just all good stuff. The franchise, and I've said this before, really might be the best at doing things like this to make former players feel special. And whether it's the documentary or just the entire presentation for Saturday night, it's just all A-plus stuff. Like, I'm genuinely proud to work at a place that treats former players like this. Mm-hmm. And perhaps it wouldn't make sense anywhere else other than Memphis that Zach Randolph and Tony Allen have numbers in FedEx Forum. Like, it might only make sense in Memphis, but it makes perfect sense in Memphis. And those guys will consider Memphis a big part of their lives for the rest of their lives, as will their families. And some of that is because of what they accomplished here, but some of that is how interested the franchise is in making those guys feel special for what they did and still feel like they're a part of everything about it. They're basically ambassadors of the franchise at this point. And anytime, you know, they're in the building together, that's a fun visual. On Rudy Gay, and then we'll move on. He's a better dude than I am. I know that about him because I would never come back to Memphis if I were Rudy Gay.
Oh, man.
I mean, people booed that guy, hated on that guy.
Oh, at the Liberty Bowl. That's what I know what you're talking about. I remember that.
He was supporting Tiger football.
I know,
You can't even get Memphis graduates to support Tiger football. And here's Rudy Gay, the UConn alum, supporting Tiger football. They put him on a jumbotron. People are like, boo. I'm like, what? What?
I remember that pissed me off when that happened. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that moment, right?
Yeah. And so there is no way you could make me feel that way and then think I'm going to come back ever. Like, I swear, I don't want to be insincere. There's a possibility that I get that phone call and I'm just like, I don't really F that place, but this is for TA, and I'm going to be there for TA. I think that maybe be where I land ultimately, but there would have been a part of me that was like, yeah, I don't need to go back there. I don't like the way they treated me. Yeah. I don't like the way they made me feel. I don't like the way they subsequently tweeted me. Except a good indication that he didn't carry around that stuff is when he wrote his retirement column for whatever website he wrote it for.
That's right. The Players Tribune, probably. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
He mentioned Memphis specifically and said, hey, I know it wasn't perfect, but man, that place means something to me. That's a special place to me. I love that.
Me too.
I don't know that I would be strong enough, mature enough to feel that way. Like, I don't walk around consumed by people who have wronged me, but I can cut you off pretty easily.
Yeah.
I never feel the, sometimes I'll see people on social media and it'll be like some big announcement. I mean, it could even be like an Instagram video, like you're announcing why you're no longer going to be friends with somebody, or announcing you're no longer boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife. Like, people love to really just talk into their phones. I don't have any interest in that. Like, if you and I, not you and I, Bennett, but like if me and a person has a falling out, if I feel like they crossed a line, I won't announce it. I probably won't even bring it up to you. Mm-hmm. I'll just disappear from you. You won't see me. You won't get the text back. It'll just be like, I don't feel any need to announce to the world what it is, or even to you why I'm no longer interested in being buddies with you. But I'll just detach and keep it moving. And like, that's probably the way I would be with Memphis if I were Rudy Gay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like the way you guys treated me. It's fine, but I'm going to detach, and I won't be out there bad-mouthing you every day, but I'm also not going to go out of my way to say good things about you. But he went out of his way to say good things about the city, about the franchise, and then he showed up, and I'm glad that he was applauded properly in that setting, because he hasn't always been.
And you know what's crazy about it too is Rudy had a good NBA career. Like, he played for a long time, longer than most people. And the player that he became, like, later in his career, like on his, like, second or third, fourth stops, that's literally like the player that Grizzlies team could have used. It's like he had to go somewhere else for things to change. And if they would have had that Rudy Gay, the later Rudy Gay, he would have been the perfect player for this team. It's just, that's how it works out sometimes. So yeah, I'm with you, man. That was really cool.
But it was just good to see him. It was good to, like, all those. I didn't know who was going to be there, but as I was watching clips and the faces pop up, it made me, I talked to Justice about this morning. As of this moment, I've spent more nights in this hotel in the year 2025 than I've spent in my own home. I'm lucky to be able to do all the things I'm doing, but there is a downside, and the downside is that I'm not home as much as I'd like to be, or probably should be, for a several-month period every year. You can start to feel a little detached, you just start to feel like you just start to feel a little detached. I'll just keep it that simple. And I just had a blast Saturday night. Yeah. Once I got settled back into my hotel room, and just consuming all of it. I watched everything that came across my timeline. I was just like, click, let's watch this and smile. Click, let's watch this and reminisce. Click, let's watch this and laugh. It was just a fun experience for me, sitting up here, and so I hope that people inside the building got a similar feeling. And again, shouts to the franchise for prioritizing this type of stuff, and these are special moments that those guys, specifically TA, will remember forever. Not every franchise does it like this. Tony Allen couldn't matter in every NBA city and with every NBA franchise, but he matters immensely in Memphis, immensely to the Grizzlies, and it was cool to see him get to have that night. His mother will remember that forever. His family will remember that forever. His children will remember that forever. It seemed to be about as perfect as it could be.
Number 2.
Now on to things that aren't as perfect as they can be.
What's going on?
The Dallas Mavericks. You might have heard they traded Luka
back
Doncic.
In the news? Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
They are back in the news. They traded Luka Doncic, and if you just thought that it was going to go away, it's not, because the Mavericks are still playing basketball games. They're still losing, and the fans at home are still starting "Fire Nico" chants every game. Can you?
What else are you going to do?
They're starting "Fire Nico" chants. Nico Harrison, the general manager, traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers in a move that just gets dumber and dumber every day, gets dumber and dumber every time anybody in a position of power in that franchise tries to talk about it. And it's just going to go down, like, almost regardless of what happens with Luka Doncic. It's just going to always be nonsensical. You might end up on the right side of it if he, has to get his legs amputated or ends up in rehab 7 times. But even then, it doesn't make any sense what you did. Even if you decide we just can't be in the Luka Doncic business anymore, which is dumb and not something any of the other 29 franchises would have ever thought. I mean, you've seen the subsequent reporting. Do you know that there was word around the NBA that this might be happening? They kept it pretty tight, but the reporting shows there was like whispers like, hey, I heard the Mavericks might be interested in getting off of Luka. And do you know what the reporting suggests? When other NBA front offices heard that, you know what they thought? Nah.
We're not even going to bother.
Really not even going to bother because they didn't believe it was true. They just didn't even believe it was true. It sounded not believable. Again, this is all you need to know. The most reputable newsbreaker in the NBA working today tweeted it the same way he tweets news every day.
Say it's worth shaking.
We never question it. If Shams reported right now that the Grizzlies have fired anybody, we would just believe it. We'd just be like, I guess they did. If Shams reported right now that anybody in the Grizzlies organization had just suffered a torn ACL, we might be like, when? What? But we would believe it. We wouldn't be like, well, there's no way that's true. He must be hacked. We'd be like, I don't know what's going on, but it's Shams. So I guess it's somebody torn ACL. Nobody believed it.
No.
That's how absurd it was. It was like, you believe everything this guy tweets, but not this, because it can't be true. That's how ridiculous this is. So anyway, the chants are still going at the Mavericks game, and now the Mavericks players, specifically P.J. Washington, arguing with the fans. There was a confrontation between P.J. Washington and a Mavericks fan this weekend because the Mavericks fans were chanting, "Fire Nico," and P.J. Washington was like, enough of this.
That's enough.
That's enough. And so after, you know what he said? We're just sick and tired of hearing it. We're just tired.
I imagine.
It almost feels like in Dallas, where there's Jason Kidd, Kyrie, whatever. They're all like, we know this is the dumbest effing thing that's ever been done in professional sports, giving away a 25-year-old first-team All-NBA superstar. But how long are we going to yell about this? What's done is done. We just going to yell about it forever? Like, the answer might be yes. They might just yell about it forever.
The crazy thing about it, too, is they are still a play-in team because the stupid Suns cannot win games. Like, they really might get in the play-in, the Dallas Mavericks.
That would let's just cut the playoff line.
Cut it off at 9? You want to cut it off at 9?
They don't even want. There is no franchise.
They don't want
in
it.
The NBA. They don't want it. There is no franchise. There is no franchise more interested in having the season end after Game 82 than the Dallas Mavericks. They are so ready for this to be over. It's just a colossal. It is hard to make sense of or find things comparable to self-sabotage as much as this. Like you were lucky enough to have one of the great generational young talents in the world under contractual control for multiple years, and you decided you didn't want that because he doesn't work out enough or because he drinks Budweiser when he's off work. I don't know. You couldn't see the forest for the trees. You couldn't see the generational talent anymore. You just saw the slob. Well, congrats. You got rid of him, but he's probably going to win the Lakers a championship at some point.
Number 3.
All right, we don't talk college baseball too often on this show, but I had to show you this. This is a new one on me. I'd never seen this one before. A Michigan baseball player hit a triple this weekend, and as he slid into third, decided he noticed a big white line. It's called the third baseline, but he noticed a big white line right there next to his nose. It was a head-first slide, so you know what comes next. Let's take a look at this, Kyra. Watch this.
Whoa.
It's the
not on the baseball field.
It's the cocaine celebration. How is it possible this is the first time I've ever seen a cocaine celebration?
I was literally gonna say that. Like, it's not. I mean, these are college kids, dude. Like, it ain't that surprising.
Oh, my buddy's gonna get drug tested this afternoon. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, listen, I don't advocate for cocaine use, but it's a damn good celebration, dude. I applaud the guy. Yeah,
you got to be careful these days. That fentanyl gets you, buddy. Fentanyl gets you just like that. You got to be.
It goes without saying.
That goes without saying. You got to be careful these days. But I just can't believe I played baseball my entire childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And
you messed up.
How did I never think of this? Of all the wild things that pop into my head, how did I never think of if I slide into third head first, I could snort the line?
Just a missed opportunity by you.
It really is.
It really is.
Like, I usually think I'm on top of this type of stuff. Like, man, certainly this should have popped into my head at some point. You know what would be funny is if I slid head first in a third and then snorted the line.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Social media wasn't as big then as it is now. Like, would you have gotten your viral moment? Like, they wouldn't have showed you doing that on SportsCenter, you know? Like
probably not.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. I was probably ahead of my time or before my time. I don't know what I was. I don't know. Missed opportunity. I think you've got it labeled right. Anyway, congratulations to that young man. I bet he'll get a talking to.
Probably,
say,
but
hey,
was it worth it? Yes.
Yes. 100% it was worth it. You went viral, young man. You went viral. Incredible baseball celebration. I'm happy for him.
Number 4.
All right, Bennett. I was doing a 3-hour television show yesterday. By the time I get done with it, start trying to plan a Gary Parrish show. It's like all the people that the Bengals fans were worried about maybe not getting proper contracts in their hands. They all got proper contracts now. Jamar Chase is signed, highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. T. Higgins also got a deal. How did Cincinnati get all this done, and how big of a deal is it?
I don't know, because I've sat here with you. We talked about this story obviously before, and I said, that ownership group, they don't really pay guys like that. Like, I don't know. There's no way they're keeping both of these guys. And they had franchised T. Higgins. You got to give them credit. I mean, I know they're going to have to figure out a way to get the rest of the roster, filled out. But Joe Burrow has said for months that they can't win without these guys, that he needs these guys. That's your franchise quarterback. We know he's one of the star quarterbacks in the league. It's the right move. You make your guy happy so he's not demanding a trade in a couple seasons. Like, this was the move that they had to make. They did it. We'll see how it affects the rest of their roster, because Jamar Chase is now the highest paid non-quarterback in league history, and T. Higgins is the highest paid wide receiver 2 in league history. So they got stuff they got to figure out, but they had to do it.
It was important. We talked about this, I think, last week, if not at some point earlier this month, where another prominent Bengal had requested a trade, and it was like, yo, man, Joe Burrow is telling you guys in clear terms, I need this, and this, and you don't seem to be getting these things resolved as much as you seem to be getting new players unhappy by the day. And eventually, it's going to be him that's unhappy. Right now, it's just your other people. But if you can't make the other people happy, eventually Joe Burrow is going to be the one who's unhappy. And now you got a quarterback asking out of Cincinnati. Ain't the first time that's ever happened.
That's right.
So, less than a week or two later to get all this wrapped up, obviously great stuff for that franchise. And I don't care enough to follow the ins and outs of the NFL salary cap. I just know that in the NBA, when they talk about salary caps and aprons and taxes and all that, it is very common to hear Bobby Marks go on ESPN and say they can't get this done. Like, they can't do it. There's nothing they can do. They're strapped. There's nothing they can do. And in the NFL, it's just like it seems like there's always a way to get something done.
Yeah, this is extreme. I mean, dude, they are spending 44% of their salary cap on 3 offensive players with Burrow and these 2 receivers.
Yeah, it just seems like there's always – in the NBA, I constantly hear people say, you can't do that. There is no way to do that. You couldn't do – a fan will call into a radio show and say, I think we should do A, B, and C. And the host, if they understand the salary cap, will say, that's impossible. You can't do that. It would not – it won't work under the salary cap structure. And in the NFL, it's always like – let me think about it. Let me figure it out. Yeah. They figure out how to get done what they need to get done. So congratulations to the Bengals. Congratulations to Joe Burrow.
Number 5.
We got an update on the young woman, Pitt student, originally from India, who went missing in the Dominican Republic back on March 6th. You might remember a young man from Iowa is the last person known to be seen with her. He is considered a person of interest, but not a suspect yet, because we still, as of this moment, have no body. We don't know where she is. She's just a missing person as of right now. As I've told you, there is surveillance video that shows him and her together. That part can't be denied. He has spoken to authorities, and what is more or less a transcript of his conversation with authorities published over the weekend. Did you see this by chance?
No.
Okay. He has a lot of different versions of what he thinks might have happened. None of them sound good. This is very much why they tell you just don't talk. Get a lawyer and don't talk. Because he apparently just started talking. And he's just saying things that, even if they're true, they don't sound believable, right? So like one of his versions of events is they were both out in the water. They got swept away. He lost connection with her. He got back to the sand and was throwing up water. He had taken in so much water. And so he was trying to get himself back under control. And then he saw her sort of off in a distance walking away. And he like kind of yelled for her, but she just kept walking. And that's the last time he ever saw her. Well, does that sound believable?
No.
You're with a young woman all night long. You've been making out. You get into the water. A scary thing happens. And that's just it?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Because I mean, maybe she was pissed that you like let her almost drown. But like, wouldn't she come back and check on you if you're like on the beach throwing up water? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Yeah.
I'm not him. I'm not her. I'm only me. But there is no scenario where that would be the last thing this woman and I ever said to each other. We just barely survive a possible drowning and then go our separate ways at 6 o'clock in the morning. It just doesn't.
Doesn't make sense.
So the question then becomes, okay, what happened? And it's impossible to know. I've read every theory on this. The young man from Iowa story seems to be, I don't know. Maybe she, like, it's weird because one minute he's saying, I think she might have drowned in the ocean. The next minute he's saying, I saw her walk away.
Yeah.
There are experts who say, if she really just drowned in the ocean, like that close to the beach, the body would already have washed ashore. And then somebody will be like, well, what if sharks ate it? And they're like, sharks wouldn't have eaten it unless she was killed and then dumped in. And not this close to the beach. It's just nothing makes sense right now. And I saw some people suggest it could be a kidnapping. It could obviously, like the most obvious thing at this moment is something bad happened between two drunk young people. And he might not even remember it. I don't, but they can't, or at least they haven't even made him a suspect yet because they don't
know what to do. Wow.
They don't know what to do right now. The only actual legal thing they've done is they have taken his passport. They've taken his passport where he can't just go wherever he wants to go. But it's kind of crazy. She went missing on March 6th. It's March 17th. Everything I've read says if she really just walked into the water with this man and then waves, whatever, took her, she drowned, the body would have been, the body would have been there quickly, certainly by now. There is still no body. The only way you're dumping a body in the ocean and it's not coming back to the beach is if you're out on a boat way out in the ocean. A drowning swimmer should be back on the beach and just not there. They don't know, but it's a real mystery.
This is wild, yeah.
It's going to be a great Dateline episode someday. I look forward to it. In the meantime, thoughts and prayers to the families. Obviously, the family of the young woman, just a nightmare of a situation. And also the family of a young man, because I bet you don't know what to think right now. On one hand, I bet you believe in your son, brother, whatever he is to you. On the other hand, you got to be wondering, yo, man, what happened?
Yeah.
And your stories don't make a lot of sense right now. That's got to be a nightmare situation as well. So no winners in this thing. No winners in this thing, but we'll watch it on Dateline some Friday night in the future. Be back with GP's Carry Out.
Debo traded from San Francisco to the Commanders for a 5th round pick. There's no other sport where you would get a player of his ilk for a 5th round pick.
Over under total yards for Debo. If they set it at 1,000, you think he hits that over?
Total yards?
Total yards from scrimmage, total yards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The Odds Couple, live at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Let's face it, there's a lot of trash talk in basketball, but the great teams let their performance do the talking. Like Ford F-150 with Pro Power on board, a class-exclusive industry-first feature that turns your truck into a mobile generator and leaves the competition speechless. Ford F-150, official truck of the Grizzlies. Greatness starts here at your Mid-South Ford dealer. Class is full-size pickups under 8,500 pounds, GVWR.
Kroger shoppers and Grizz fans, want exclusive last-minute discounted ticket deals texted straight to you during the Grizzlies 2024-2025 season? Sign up with the new Kroger Buzzer Beater deal. Fans can sign up by texting Grizz to 636-479 or visit your local Kroger store in the Delta Division and scan the QR code. By signing up, you agree to receive recurring automated promotional and personalized marketing text messages from the Memphis Grizzlies. Consent is not a condition of any purchase. Message frequency varies. Message and data rates may apply.
Shinedown. Dance Kid Dance Tour. Live in Memphis. FedEx Forum Saturday, August 30th. With special guests, Bush and Morgan Wade. Get tickets now at livenation.com. Shinedown, live in concert. For more, visit shinedown.com.
Thanks for showing up, Memphis. Nothing beats catching your Grizzlies IRL, and nobody knows that better than you. So next time you want to hit up a game, Ticketmaster's got your back with tickets to every upcoming matchup. Whether you're catching the Grizzlies at home or on the road, you'll find tickets at Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Memphis Grizzlies and the NBA. Keep putting that jersey collection to use and get Grizzlies tickets today. There's no better brag than saying you saw it live. See you courtside again soon, Memphis.
Welcome back, Gary Parrish Show, presented by Ortho South. Let's wrap this up with GP's Carryout.
It's time for GP's Carryout. One final segment filled with stuff to take with you. It's not everything you need to know, but it's most of it. What did we learn today?
A whole bunch of stuff, but we mostly focused on the NCAA Tournament. Bracket is set. Once again, they put 68 teams in it, because that's what's required. Memphis is one of them. Got a 5 seed, a little higher than what most people predicted. They clearly respected Memphis's approach to non-league scheduling, and then how Memphis navigated its very difficult non-league schedule, getting wins over the Big Ten outright champ, Michigan State, the back-to-back national champs, UConn, and then mostly running through an AAC, first the regular season, then the AAC tournament. So they get a 5 seed, and that's all good stuff. What Penny Hardaway would tell you is that when he put together that non-league schedule, he was hoping that the committee would respect it and seed them accordingly if they did well against it. They did well against it. They were rewarded with a 5 seed. That's the good. The bad is Tyrese Hunter has a foot injury. He was in a boot yesterday, on crutches yesterday. I know he climbed a ladder and cut some net, but, oh, buddy, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world for him to climb that ladder.
That was tough. Yeah.
I don't know that you can go from climbing a ladder like that on a Sunday to playing basketball on a Friday. As always, we'll see. Memphis will give us an update on that at some point, but I don't think many people are optimistic. It seems more likely than not that Memphis is going to have to play this NCAA tournament without Tyrese Hunter, and Memphis is going to open the NCAA tournament against Colorado State, the 12th seed out of the Mountain West Conference, on a 10-game winning streak. Just won the Mountain West Conference tournament, led by Nick Clifford. A borderline, could go, anywhere outside of the lottery, if not in the first round, early second round. It's got a coach in Nico Medved who is probably about to be the next head coach at Minnesota. And when this Colorado State season is over, he'll be headed to the Big Ten. And you're a 2.5-point underdog to them. Ken Pom would have you as a 1-point underdog. I assume the Tyrese Hunter situation is what moved it a little bit even further in that direction. But yeah, if I'd have told you on November 1st, December 1st, January 1st, February 1st, even March 1st, if I would have said, Bennett, I got good news, you'd say, what? I said, the Tigers are going to be a 5 seed on Selection Sunday. You would say, that's amazing. And if I said, okay, but here's the rest of it, the Tigers will be an underdog in the round of 64, even as a 5 seed, and Tyrese Hunter will be unavailable. It just makes you feel a little bit different about it. So I was hoping today would be a celebration of Tiger basketball, and on some level it is. But
oh, yeah, it is.
You didn't want to be a 5 seed and then be an underdog and then have one of your most important players injured in the AAC tournament. But here we are. We'll wait for that Tyrese Hunter update, which should come, I would assume, at some point in the next 24 hours, but we'll see.
What's today's biggest game?
Let's go NBA. Let's go Heat Knicks. Let's do 6:30 tip on ESPN. Grizzlies just pounded the Heat the other night. Now they're up here in New York. Knicks are a 7.5-point favorite. Total's 210.5. Again, it's on ESPN. How are you going to act?
Yeah, I mean, that team did not look like a team that's, playing competitive basketball right now. Clearly, they have not been the same ever since Jimmy Butler went to the Warriors. I think the Knicks at home handle that pretty easily.
Big Bet Bennett said he don't trust that fraudulent Miami Heat team.
No.
Lay the points. Knicks minus 7.5. Tip at 6:30. Watch it on ESPN.
What are we watching on TV?
I think Raw on Netflix. John Cena is expected to make an appearance. It's Evil John Cena. Evil John Cena will be in attendance. All right, let's go then.
I'm excited about this face-off.
I'm going to be flying during Raw tonight, and I don't think that Delta Wi-Fi is going to let me do it. That Delta Wi-Fi ain't strong enough for a stream. You know how much I love Delta, but they ain't usually strong enough for a stream.
Yeah.
I might just have to catch it when I get home. Might just have to catch it when I get home. But John Cena, Evil John Cena, makes his return to the WWE stage tonight. First time since he turned heel and busted up Cody Rhodes in advance of their meeting at WrestleMania. So that'll be fun tonight, 7 o'clock Central. You can stream it on Netflix.
What's the best thing we've read?
Well, I don't know if it's the best. In fact, I'm certain it's not. But the top 25 and 1 has been sent to CBSSports.com, where I did keep Auburn number 1 for, I believe, the 66th straight day. I told you a few weeks ago that Auburn had built a resume so superior to the rest of the sport they could afford to take losses and remain number 1. I stayed true to that. The selection committee also stayed true to that. I finished with Memphis at number 20. I want to be clear. I filed the top 25 and 1 even before the selection show. So it's not a reaction to that. I've got Michigan 9th, and Michigan's a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. But I did have Memphis 20th, which equates to a 5 seed. You can find it at CBSSports.com.
What's on tap for tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow will be Tuesday. So we'll be looking back at Grizzlies Kings. That's tonight out in Sacramento. Late tip, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern. So we'll look back at that. We'll be one day closer to the start of the NCAA tournament. In fact, we'll be on the day of the start of the NCAA tournament because we get San Diego State, North Carolina tomorrow night in Dayton in the first 4. Only 5 teams, 5 programs, 5 schools have played in one of the past 3 national championship games because UConn went to back-to-back title games. And 2 of those 5 will be playing in Dayton tomorrow night. North Carolina lost to Kansas in the national championship.
San Diego State.
And San Diego State lost to UConn in that first of the back-to-back Dan Hurley national championships. They meet in Dayton. Not many people thought North Carolina should be there, but they are. We'll see how they respond to all of the criticism. That'll be tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll enjoy mine. We'll meet back here tomorrow at 10. Till then, be careful, be kind, be good. Rep your hood.